I've seen the fire in our nation's eyes when anger prowls for prey. I've heard good people draw their lines and call it holy rage. But the cross was never raised to bless the stones we throw. And if mercy leaves the house, there's something wrong down in the soul. Words ain't bullets, but they can hit the same. And once a heart turns cold enough, it forgets what grace is for. There's no room for hate in America tonight. No room in the home where the children need the light. No room in the heart where the Savior's supposed to stay. If Jesus owns the house, then hatred don't got no place. No room for hate. No room for hate. No room for hate. You can wave a flag above it, you can quote a verse or two, you can dress it up like justice, till it almost sounds like truth. But outrage ain't righteous when it changes with the side. And you can't love your neighbor, treating them like they're downrange. We're all image bearers, breath of God and dust. And you don't heal a broken land by teaching it not to trust. There's no room for hate in America tonight. No room in the home where the children need the light. No room in the heart where the Savior's supposed to stay. If Jesus owns the house, then hatred don't got no place. No room for hate. No room for hate. No room for hate. Drag it to the cross, lay it in the ground. Let the blood of Jesus turn the whole thing around. Truth can still be spoken, courage still can stand, but rage don't get to rule the soul of a faithful man. There's no room for hate in America tonight. No room in the home where the children need the light. No room in the heart where the Savior's supposed to stay. If Jesus owns the house, then hatred don't got no place.
Let revival start where the anger breaks.
Where the anger breaks.
Let healing rise up where the hurt gives way.
No room for hate.
No room for hate.
No room for hate.
No room for hate.
Not in Jesus' name. Oh, not in this house. Not in this heart. Not in His name. No room for hate.
Remember when entertainment was actually entertaining? When comedy was about being funny? Movies were about telling great stories, and you didn't need a political lecture every time you hit play. Great entertainment still exists, it's just getting harder to find. Even the biggest streaming platforms leave audiences disappointed. That's why there's Studio TST, pure entertainment, real comedy, independent films, bold creators, movies, comedy, music, and more, and the home of fearless sketch comedy. That show tonight, entertainment the way you want it. Funny, creative, unapologetic, and agenda-free. Studio TST, the future of entertainment starts here. Join Studio TST today for just $5 a month.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRN Radio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRN Radio.
In uncertain times, we could use someone to lean on. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Oklahoma will stand by you with plan options to fit your budget. If you've recently lost your job, had a baby, or moved, you can still get the healthcare coverage you and your family need. Financial help may be available for those who qualify. Call 855-452-BLUE or visit hereforyouok.com to see if you're eligible to enroll. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Oklahoma, a division of Healthcare Service Corporation, a mutual legal reserve company.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Got a vendetta. Coffee tastes like bad decisions I ain't made yet. Boss man talking about we got him, and that means me, brother. Afraid I got a terminal case of the I don't want us. Mind checked out, heart ain't in the building. That second hand's crawling like it hates my guts. The man treating rich like it's a sin. Even God took a beat. So, suck it. Thank God it's Friday, punching out loud. Hands in the air, middle finger to 9 to 5. Still waiting, but tonight I don't care. Cold beer sermon and a bar stool prayer. Take this job and shove it tonight I'm free. Yeah, work and wait. It ain't owning me. So raise 'em up high. Let the whistle blow. Thank God it's Friday. That right. News with a backbone, voice of the free. Rick's got the pulse of liberty.
And welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Friday edition of the Rick Robinson Show. I know I'm cutting the intro short. I know. I like this song, too. At some point, I'll actually get it put out on the label that we've put together for the music that we write around here. It's just been, look, I'll be honest, in between funerals and being sick and then running into grandkid birthday alley for the last several weeks, I'm behind on everything again. And I just got caught up, which makes me more frustrated than you're ever going to know. Because now I'm behind again. Anyway, so we're here. We're live. We have plenty of things to talk about today. But first, I just want to talk about the diplomacy happening here in America before I get into the actual noted portions of the show. I think it's amazing that even TSA at this point is making jokes about how much it turns out that the folks that are not from here love this crazy thing we call ranch dressing. Because last night I kept seeing posts from the TSA. Hey, we love ranch dressing too, but if you're going to bring some back with you when you go back across the pond, make sure you put it in your checked luggage. Also, as from a friend of mine who travels more than I do now, and I used to do the same thing, if you're going to take anything like that with you, even in a checked bag, make sure you put it in a Ziploc bag that you can ensure seals. Don't ask me how I know. Just saying. Anyway, so we're here. We're live. But yeah, diplomacy, yeah, see what I did there, has become an amazing thing. And yes, I stole that directly from the TSA. I don't really care. Okay, so that being said, boy, do we have a show today. So I do everything I can to try to make Fridays a bit more fun. I don't think this one's going to get there, though. I'm going to try. There are a couple things, if I don't run out of runway, that we could talk about that would, in fact, still be a little fun. Like this Freddy dude being famous and pulling the Mickey. Every time I've ever seen a picture of the dude, he's got a smiley face over him. I feel like Mickey should be able to hit him for like infringement or something. I don't know. I know he probably wasn't the first one to ever do that, but he's the only one that used to have my call letters attached to him that I know that did that stuff. So I think that's kind of cool. So anyway, this is when we officially welcome you into the Friday edition of the Rick Robinson Show. And of course, I am that guy, Rick Robinson. So today's show is going to kind of be all over the place, but I promise, as long as we get through it all, pardon me, as long as we get through it all, there is going to be a bit of a through line. So, because today is all about trust under pressure. Not the easy kind of trust politicians demand when everything is going well and nobody's examining the fine print. I mean, what happens when ballots appear under unusual circumstances? Election officials create procedures that may not match the law. Intelligence agencies uncover an alleged terror plot, and an administration asks you to trust its description of an agreement that does not appear to say everything the administration claims it says. Every story we have today comes down to the same question. Do the rules remain the rules when following them because do the rules remain the rules when following them becomes politically inconvenient? So we're going to be beginning in Los Angeles, where federal agents are reportedly investigating allegations involving paid election activity among homeless residents on Skid Row. Then we're going to move to Georgia, where the Republican National Committee says Fulton and Gwinnett counties invented ways of collecting absentee ballots that the state law never authorized. Then we're also going to go inside the Democratic Party and their little Civil War brouhaha they seem to have going on, where New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani might as well be the de facto leader of the Democratic Party, because he's no longer simply promoting socialism. He's recruiting candidates, challenging Democratic incumbents, and attempting to build his own governing faction. Later, we'll visit the opening of the Obama Presidential Center, where the Democratic Party's former leaders gathered to celebrate their legacy, while one of the most uncomfortable images of that legacy unfolded on the stage behind them, because, Silver Alert was silver alerting again. Tulsi Gabbard also used her final day as a director of the National Intelligence Director of National Intelligence to release documents concerning Anthony Fauci, American funding connected to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and the suppression of the COVID lab leak theory. Then we're going to go into hour 2, where we're going to examine the alleged UFC Freedom 250 terror plot, all the stuff that's come out about that, including the DACA recipient federal investigators have identified as one of its alleged organizers, and what that says about government discretion in continuing immigration enforcement. Then, because it's Friday, we have a Rick's rant. So when Trump had to make an agreement with Iran, why reopening the Strait of Hormuz mattered to the entire world economy, why the administration's narrow defense of a $300 billion reconstruction mechanism misses the larger question, and why the language officials are using to sell this agreement does not always match the language contained in the MOU. We have 2 hours. We're going to use pretty much all of them. So let's begin with Skid Row. And no, I don't mean the 80s hairband, although they were kind of cool. Federal agents reportedly descended on Los Angeles Skid Row Thursday as part of an investigation into allegations of election-related fraud and bribery involving homeless residents. The timing immediately attracted attention because it followed a dramatic shift in the Los Angeles mayoral primary. Remember, we've talked about that. Democratic Socialist City Councilwoman Nithya Raman received a substantial number of late-arriving mail-in votes and moved ahead of Spencer Pratt for the second position in the mayoral runoff. A significant portion of Raman's late support reportedly came from precincts associated with Skid Row. That is suspicious to some people. It is not by itself proof of anything, but still, questions remain. A candidate receiving late mail-in votes is not proof of fraud. A homeless person voting for Nithya Raman is not proof of fraud because a ballot being delivered through a centralized address is not automatically illegal, especially not in California, and supporting a Democratic Socialist does not make somebody's ballot less legitimate. But allegations that people were paid to sign multiple registration forms, forge signatures, or complete voter information for other people are not ordinary political complaints. Those are allegations of specific and criminal conduct. According to reporting from the California Post, homeless residents said people had been paid cash to complete and sign voter registration paperwork. In one recorded interview, a woman was asked how many forms she would sign at one time. She answered 4 or 5. It kind of depends. We do not yet know the complete circumstances surrounding that statement. We do not know who allegedly paid her. We don't know whether she was describing registration forms, petitions, ballots, or some combination of electoral paperwork. We also do not know whether the activity was connected to Raman, Mayor Karen Bass, another campaign, an outside organization, or no campaign at all. That's why we're glad people are investigating this. The California Post reported seeing plainclothes federal agents interviewing residents and taking notes on the Skid Row. Homeland Security investigations personnel were also reportedly involved. The Justice Department confirmed that federal agents were investigating a criminal matter, but it did not publicly define the subject or the scope of that matter. The FBI followed its normal practice of declining to comment on an ongoing investigation. So here's what we can say. We have credible reporting that federal investigators are asking questions. We have recorded allegations from people living on Skid Row. We do not yet have a final federal finding establishing that fraudulent ballots altered the mayoral election. Those distinctions matter. Conservatives should not jump from this requires investigation to directly, we have proved the election was stolen. Democrats should not jump from fraud has not yet been proved to asking questions as an attack on democracy. Neither reaction predicts the election. The answer is evidence. Who handled the forms? Who provided the money? What were people paid to sign? Were voters knowingly registering themselves, or were their identities being used by someone else? Were actual ballots involved? Were signatures forged? Were people instructed how to vote? Did any allegedly illegal documents enter the election system? Can investigators establish a connection to a campaign, political committee, signature gathering company, or advocacy organization? Follow the evidence wherever it goes. If investigators determine there was no organized ballot fraud, tell the public. If someone exploited homeless residents to manufacture registrations or signatures, prosecute that person. If a campaign or political organization participated, expose it. And if illegal ballots entered the system, determine how many there were and whether they affected the result. Trust is not restored by telling people to stop noticing unusual circumstances. That's basically, it's basically straight out of 1984. They told us not to trust the things that we were seeing with our own eyes. Trust is, however, restored by answering reasonable questions with verifiable evidence. And there we go. So there's another layer to this story that gets buried beneath the partisan fight. And this is something that I feel like we don't really talk about enough anymore. Homeless people are actually still mostly citizens in this country if they're legally well, I guess they are citizens in this country if they're legally eligible to vote. They possess the same right to cast a ballot as the person living in a gated community. Lacking a conventional home does not erase someone's constitutional rights, but homelessness also creates vulnerability. But this is where I'm going to stop you, and this is why the change to life, liberty, and the pursuit of property to becoming life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness changed the entire trajectory of this country, because they were able to use that pursuit of happiness to say, well, it doesn't matter if somebody's renting or they own, or even if they're homeless, they should still have a right to vote. This also puts a lot of people that have no direct skin in the game with the ability to vote for people who promise to give them free things all the time. So this is one of the reasons why I think that was a detrimental change to our founding documents. It sounds more compassionate when you say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But one of the primary tenets of freedom is your ability to have something that you call your own that no one else can take from you. And because they have changed that wording, they have changed a lot of things that seemed very subtle at first. Like the fact that when people were allowed to vote in the beginning, it was specifically people who owned property, had businesses, and actually had skin in the game as far as how the country works. When you allow people that are on the dole to vote, you usually wind up getting people voting for more dole, less fix. Just saying. But again, putting all of that aside for the moment, homelessness also creates a lot of vulnerability. And let's face it, probably about 60 to 70% of America today is living from paycheck to paycheck, and basically one missed paycheck from a disaster, because we haven't been taught how to manage money properly anymore. And I don't want to hear any of this of how much easier it was in the 60s and 70s and 80s and how much further money went, because that's not really true. Because I remember when my parents got I think it was a 25-inch console TV in I'm going to say probably 1976, 1977. And the damn thing was like $1,000. Put that in today's money. Just saying. So a lot of this, well, homes were cheaper, cars were cheaper, this was cheaper. Yeah, but you were paying a lot more for other things. It's just the way things works. It's just the way things have always worked. But again, homelessness does create a bit of vulnerability, and I feel like we don't really talk about that enough. A person living in a tent, their vehicle, or a temporary shelter may receive mail through a church, the shelter they're staying in, some sort of an outreach organization, governmental office, or another centralized address. Those arrangements may be completely legitimate and practically necessary. You cannot mail a ballot to a sidewalk. But centralized handling also creates an opportunity for abuse when safeguards are weak. That does not mean homeless voting is inherently fraudulent. It means election administrators should recognize the vulnerability and protect both the voter and the ballot. The poorest person on Skid Row is not a political prop. They are not a stack of signatures for somebody else to purchase. They are not a convenient collection of identities that a political operative may use to complete paperwork, and they are definitely not raw material for somebody's ballot harvesting operation. Their vote still belongs to them. If someone paid vulnerable people to sign documents they did not understand or completed electoral paperwork in their names, that is not voter outreach. That is exploitation. This investigation also follows a separate federal case involving professional signature collector Brenda Lee Brown Armstrong. Prosecutors allege that Armstrong paid people, including homeless individuals, to register to vote as part of an illegal signature gathering operation involving ballot initiatives. That case does not automatically prove anything about Nithya Top Raman or the Los Angeles mayoral primary. We should not combine separate allegations merely because they involve election paperwork and occurred around the same populations. But the Armstrong case establishes why reports of payments, multiple forms, and homeless residents cannot simply be dismissed as impossible. Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights Harmeet K. Dillon said false registrations undermine Americans' confidence in elections, particularly when payoffs are involved, and she's right. And this should not be a partisan principle. If the ballots had benefited a Republican, Democrats would demand a full investigation. If the alleged organizer wore a MAGA hat, every national outlet would understand immediately why cash payments and multiple signatures warranted the same kind of scrutiny that we're wanting here. The standard cannot change because the candidate who may have benefited is a progressive Democrat, but we also cannot reverse the standard and assume guilt merely because Top Rahman is a Democratic socialist. Yeah, can't we though? Can't we? Investigate the conduct, document the evidence, identify the participants, protect legal voters, prosecute actual crimes. Do not allow the political identity of the possible beneficiary to determine whether the public is entitled to answers. Top Rahman's late mail-in surge helped move her into the second runoff position and push Spencer Pratt into third. If the reported activity involved ballots, and if enough unlawful ballots were connected to that result, the consequences could be significant, or they would be if we had any way to do election recalls. Those are two very large ifs. We should not pretend they have already been proved. But because the race was close enough for late ballots to change the runoff positions, investigators must establish what happened before the public can have confidence in the final result. And I'm going to say this again. As long as California has taken 6 weeks to determine mayoral races, anyway, transparency does not weaken an election. It shows whether the safeguards worked, or if they even failed for that matter. And if they did fail, then it lets us see whether or not you fixed them. Blind faith is not election integrity. Documented custody, lawful procedure, meaningful observation, and auditable evidence are election integrity. However, this is true in Los Angeles. And after the break, because we are already just about there, oh my, we're going to Georgia, where the question is not who allegedly paid whom. The question is whether local election officials decided they could invent new ballot return procedures without authorization from the legislature. So when we get back, the Republican National Committee says Fulton, Gwinnett counties went around Georgia election law by creating absentee ballot collection systems that the legislature never authorized. Were they legitimate administrative procedures or unauthorized drop boxes operating under a different name? When we turn to, and then we're going to turn into the civil war currently going on inside the Democratic Party. Is Zohran Mamdani merely the socialist mayor of New York City, or is he becoming the party's de facto ideological leader? This is the Rick Robinson Show, live right here on KLRN-Radio.com or KLRN-Radio-DB, whichever you prefer. We'll be right back. Don't go too far. Again, this is Friday, so we're going to start off with the military tribute. We'll be right back.
Before the oath was spoken out loud, before you stood apart from the crowd, there was a moment, quiet and clear, when you chose to stand while others stayed here. You raised your hand with a steady resolve, knowing some nights don't end when the mission's done. Not for glory, not for the pay, but for something worth more than walking away.
Only hold the line.
They carried the weight where the roads ran long, through dust and heat
When the days went on,
holding ground mile after mile, doing the work that
rarely drew a smile.
they stood their post when relief ran late,
shoulders squared under the pull of fate.
Not chasing headlines, not asking why, just staying put when others pass by. We stand and watch in different ways, different nights, the same long days. One old spoken carried through, wherever duty calls us to.
We stand watch over the deep. They kept their watch where the water turns black, miles from shore with no quick way back, measuring time by the rise and the fall, answering duty's unrelenting call. Through silent hours and endless seas, they stood their post in the cold night breeze,
Guarding the lanes the world depends on, so others slept and the light stayed on. We stand the watch in different ways, different nights, the same long days. One old spoken carried through, wherever duty calls us to.
Simplify Marine.
We go where we're sent. We go where we're sent.
They moved as one when the moment came, side by side through fire and rain. First to step where the ground was thin, not for the odds but for the ones beside them.
Trust was earned in the hard way through, every promise carried by the few. No turning back once the line was crossed.
They stood shoulder to shoulder as brothers,
Never counting the cost. We stand the watch in different ways, different nights, the same long days. One old spoken carried through, wherever duty calls us to.
Air Force,
The sky is our domain.
Air Force.
The sky is our domain.
They held their focus where seconds seem eternal, soaring between clouds and blue. Every movement measured and true, knowing what one clean moment could do.
They watch the whole while guarding the small, every mission tied to a larger call. Calm under pressure, steady and clear, keeping the promise from far overhead.
Space Force,
We guard the dark without
they
faith,
keep their vigil
where silence reigns,
beyond the weather,
beyond the rain.
watching the paths that the world relies on, long before the warning lights come on.
Cloud, no banners, no clear view,
Just constant care in a canvas full of stars,
standing the watch through the endless night, guarding the systems that keep us in light.
while the watch is kept and the lines hold fast. There are lives still moving on the other side of that.
Empty chairs and quiet phones, long goodbyes that don't feel done.
Names we carry but never say, folded flags and debts we pay. Every service, every scar reaches farther than the uniform ever could.
Coast Guard, we come when it matters most.
They launch into storms when hope feels thin. Turning back isn't an option then. Hands reach out where the waters rise, pulling lives back from the edge of time. No headlines waiting when the call is done, just breathing restored and another life won. Every rescue, every return, a quiet promise kept in the worst conditions. We stand the watch in different ways, different nights,
One old spoken carry through wherever duty calls us to.
For the ones who raised the right hand high,
Swore the oath and didn't ask us why.
for the nights you stood where freedom cost.
We remember, we arm, we won't forget the loss.
From the ground to the sea to the open sky, to the guardians above where the silent stars fly. Every branch, every badge, every battle scar, because you stood.
We live free.
Lord, we know
We stand here freely.
because others stood before us. We accept the weight of what was given and the cost that came with it. We promise to remember those who serve, those who stand watch still, and those who never came home.
And welcome back into the program, ladies and gentlemen. Again, it is Friday, which means this is the finally FriYay edition of the Rick Robinson Show. I'm trying to make it as FriYay as possible. I gotta admit, so Wednesday's usually our biggest night. It's one of my busiest days. Friday's gonna become the second busiest because lots of usual back-to-back things that I have to do. But it's fine because I keep signing myself up for them, so it's my own fault. But anyway. So yeah, Wednesday's normally our biggest day. So, and we'll get into this a little bit in greater detail later, but so Wednesday I had this entire show prep to try to explain to people why it was, because, this is back when they kept telling us, hey, the stuff that's being leaked about the MOU isn't the actual MOU, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Vance is making the rounds, telling everybody what a great deal it is. And then the actual MOU comes out and yeah. So yeah, I took Wednesday night off because I have been taking flack from all sides, because I'm going to say this again. If the guy in the presidency was a Democrat right now, my folks would be having a fit about this MOU. We'll be getting into that a bit later, because like I said, that's going to be kind of where the rant comes from. It's been a while since I've actually done a Rick's rant on the actual show, at least announced that I'm going to do one. Normally they just kind of happen spontaneously. However, we are gonna, get into that much later. But anyway, welcome back into the program. For those of you who are just joining us, we did examine the federal investigation unfolding on Skid Row in Los Angeles and the allegations that homeless residents were paid to sign multiple pieces of electoral paperwork. Now, again, we don't know whether that includes what would be considered fraudulent ballots or not. And whether those would have any direct impact on the mayoral race. And let's face it, even if it does, there's not really any type of a process to do anything about it for now, other than maybe we can finally find out if these assholes are in fact cheating. Remember, I also have the language disclaimer for a reason. So now we're going to move on to Georgia, where the dispute is not primarily about voter eligibility. It's about whether county election officials follow the law governing how absentee ballots may be returned. So the Republican National Committee and the Georgia Republican Party have filed lawsuits against election officials in both Fulton and Gwinnett counties in Georgia. Secretary of State candidate Tim Fleming and local Republican organizations have also joined the litigation. The allegation is straightforward. County officials created new methods for accepting absentee ballots that Georgia law does not authorize. According to the lawsuits, Georgia permits an absentee ballot to be returned in 3 ways: by mail, by hand delivery to the registrar, or absentee ballot clerk. And that's kind of the hand delivery stuff right there. Or through a legally authorized drop box. The RNC says Gwinnett County created a 4th method. In February 2024, the county board reportedly adopted a policy allowing voters to hand absentee ballots to poll managers at locations that did not contain authorized drop boxes. The ballots would be stamped, placed inside what officials called a secured ballot bag, and later transported to the registrar. That may sound reasonable, it may sound convenient, but convenience is not the only legal consideration. Georgia law establishes specific safeguards for ballots deposited in official drop boxes. Those ballots are supposed to be retrieved by a sworn two-person collection team. The transfer must be documented. Counts must be verified. Chain of custody records must be created and preserved. The RNC alleges Gwinnett's ballot bags did not include those protections. No sworn two-person collection team, no required transfer form, no registrar verification when the ballots were received, and no sufficiently documented chain of custody showing who possessed those ballots at every stage. Then we get into Fulton County. Fulton's election board reportedly approved a policy in April designating poll managers and assistant managers at 22 polling places as quote-unquote deputy registrars. That doesn't sound fishy at all. Voters could hand their absentee ballots to those officials, receive a label for the envelope, and place the ballot inside what Fulton called an ABM ballot container. The RNC argues that this was an attempt to create additional drop boxes without calling them drop boxes. If an official container sits at a polling location, accepts absentee ballots, and later transports those ballots to the election office, then it is performing the basic function by definition of what one would call a drop box. Calling it a ballot container does not necessarily remove it from laws governing ballot collection. Fulton County was legally permitted 7 drop boxes and had reportedly already reached that limit. The 22 additional containers would expand the county's collection network far beyond the statutory cap. The policy also reportedly kept those containers available through Election Day, even though Georgia law requires authorized drop boxes to close when advanced voting ends on the Friday before Election Day. The lawsuits further allege that Republican poll watchers were prevented from observing portions of these ballot handoffs and transfers. Observation is not decorative. Poll watchers provide competing campaigns and parties with an opportunity to observe whether the same rules are being applied consistently. These remain allegations. The counties will have an opportunity to defend their policies, explain their legal authority, and demonstrate what safeguards were used. A court will decide whether the procedures violated Georgia law. But the principle should not be controversial. Election administrators administer election law. They don't write it. Maybe Fulton and Gwinnett officials believed the legally authorized return methods were inadequate. Maybe they wanted to make voting more convenient. Maybe they believed designating additional officials as deputy registrars created sufficient authority. Then make that argument to the legislature or openly before a court. Do not create something functionally identical to a drop box, change the name, and insist the statutory limits no longer apply because it's a ballot container, not a ballot drop box. If lawmakers wrote the law too narrowly, lawmakers can change it. If the law is unconstitutional, challenge it. Local officials cannot simply replace a law they dislike with procedures they prefer. However, is that really true anymore? And I use the ideas of, the sanctuary city laws and everything else as a prime example. We are, in fact, on a daily basis now replacing and or removing laws that we no longer like, laws that we no longer agree with, and it's fine as long as you have a certain political bent. So it's not supposed to happen, but the truth of the matter is it is, in fact, happening. So chain of custody matters, observer access matters, transfer documentation matters, collection deadlines also matter. The number and location of ballot return sites matter too, especially since they are legally set. Once ballots received outside the authorized process are mixed with legally returned ballots, separating them may, in fact, become impossible because it is. That is precisely why safeguards must be followed before the ballots are combined. Rules that apply only when your party is losing are not rules. Those are political weapons. That's also stuff we keep saying isn't happening. It's what we keep being told. Yeah, this isn't happening. We don't even know what you're talking about. Why is this such a big deal? This is why it's a big deal. Everything that we're talking about right now, the central line of everything that is being discussed on this show is kind of a recurring theme lately because it's all about trust. Can we trust the officials that we're sending to Washington? Can we trust the officials that we're putting in charge of our elections? Notice I didn't say the leadership, the bosses, the political elite. We need to remove those words from our lexicon because we have changed the dynamic on our own by what we call these people. We make the argument all the time to the left that words matter, how you use them matter, what you say they mean matters, but we keep calling these people our leaders. They're not. We say the president is the leader of the free world. That may be hyperbolically correct, but it doesn't mean he's our leader. He works for us. That's the part of this that I can't ever seem to make anybody logically understand anymore. These buttheads that we keep sending into all these different positions, they're supposed to be working for us. And there's a reason why I'm leading in with this, because there's been a shakeup within the Democratic Party that nobody's talking about. You now have the actual supposed leader of, well, the current crop of Democrats, known as Hakeem Jeffries, out campaigning for all of the establishment candidates. But you have Zohran Mamdani, who is basically, if not in fact, in ideological terms, kind of becoming the de facto leader of the Democratic Party. So here we go. We're going to round out the election discussion a bit with a question that would have sounded ridiculous a year ago. Is Zohran Mamdani, the commie, now the de facto leader of the Democratic Party? I don't mean formally, because Hakeem Jeffries still technically leads the House, but he's pretty weak. Democrat Chuck Schumer leads the Senate, but again, nobody really likes him, even within his own party anymore. Senate, so the party has governors, senators, prospective presidential candidates with constituencies far beyond New York City. And Mamdani, as of right now at least, does not control those institutions. But political leadership is not always determined by a title. Sometimes it is determined by who sets the agenda, energizes the activists, recruits the candidates, and identifies the opposition, and forces everybody else to respond. By that definition, Mamdani may already be the most consequential ideological leader inside the Democratic Party as of right now today. He has a clear message, he has an energized movement, and increasingly he has an organized plan for replacing Democrats who will not join in to his vision for the Democratic Party. So Republicans are certainly attempting to weaponize Mamdani nationally, and I think they should be. They want his face attached to every Democrat running in a competitive district, but Republicans did not create his influence. The movement, sadly, is real. The people pretending otherwise are moderate Democrats who still imagine they belong to Bill Clinton's Democratic Party. That party believed markets could create prosperity while government provided a safety net. Clinton embraced free trade, signed welfare reform, spoke about personal responsibility, and deliberately attempted to move Democrats toward the political center. That wing may still exist. It still wins in some elections, but it is no longer the only Democratic Party operating in America. On June 18th, Mamdani appeared with Bernie Sanders at a major Brooklyn rally under the banner, "Our Team, Our Year." He stood behind 3 congressional candidates and declared that the Democratic Party must change. And I do believe we may have a clip for this. Hang on, let me look. I could have swore I pulled a clip for it, but I don't remember if I bookmarked it or not. That one. No, I guess I didn't. Oh, well. I can probably find it, though. I don't know. Hang on. Sorry, my voice has suddenly decided it hates me. Which is honestly one reason why I was going to try to sneak in the clip, but I don't seem to have it. So it's all right. We can go on without it. I have other clips later. All right. So anyway, sorry. Let me get back over here. So he stood beside 3 congressional candidates and declared that the Democratic Party must change. You must change, Democrats. There's a movie reference there, but some of you won't get it. He accused the current leadership of managing decline instead of delivering material change for working people. Then he connected New York's June 23rd primaries directly to the Democratic presidential contest in 2028. That is not merely a mayor asking for a friendly congressional delegation. That is someone attempting to define the future direction of a national political party. Mamdani is supporting former New York City Comptroller Brad Lander against incumbent Democratic Rep. Dan Goldman He's backing their Eliza Avila Chevalier. Sorry, I forgot how to pronounce her name for a second. Against 5-term Democratic Rep. Adriano Espilier, chairman of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. He has also endorsed Democratic Socialist Claire Valdez for the open seat being vacated by Rep. Nidia Velazquez. And though Velazquez selected Brooklyn Borough President and Antonio Reynoso as her preferred successor, he's still going for the other one anyway. Two of Mamdani's candidates are attempting to remove sitting Democrats. The third is attempting to defeat the preferred successor of an outgoing, also considered progressive Democrat. Mamdani's not merely fighting Republicans. He is deciding which Democrats should represent the state of New York. Meanwhile, Hakeem Jeffries is endorsing and campaigning for the threatened incumbents. That makes these contests a proxy war. The formal leader of House Democrats against the emerging ideological leader of the party's socialist movement. Mamdani has also endorsed 5 candidates for the New York legislature: Samantha Catton, Aber Kawas, Brian Romero, Nipa Saratipuk, and Eli Northrup. For accuracy, all 5 are running for open seats. Mamdani himself has been more cautious about challenging sitting state legislators. But incumbent Democrats are not being left alone. The occasional Cortex, otherwise known as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, has endorsed several Democratic Socialist of America candidates directly challenging Democratic Assembly members. Reporting from City and State New York described the Mamdani and the AOC slates as complementary. Mamdani concentrates on open legislative seats and high-profile congressional contests. AOC supports some of the candidates challenging incumbent Assembly Democrats. The DSA supplies candidates, organizers, volunteers, and campaign infrastructure. That looks less like random endorsements and more like a division of labor. The DSA does not need to replace the Democratic Party to accomplish its objectives. It can operate through it. Its candidates usually run in Democratic primaries because in overwhelmingly Democratic cities and districts, winning the primary effectively means winning the office. According to the DSA's own tracking, it entered the 2026 cycle with nearly 90 endorsed candidates, including more than a dozen congressional candidates. That is not national control. It is the infrastructure, though, from which political enclaves can grow. Mamdani governs New York City. Kate Wilson, a Democratic Socialist, defeated Seattle's incumbent mayor, Janice Lewis George won the Democratic nomination for mayor of Washington, D.C., which basically will likely make her the de facto mayor of D.C., because much like everywhere else in deep blue cities and states, the blue primaries decide the next person. In Los Angeles, Nithya Raman moved into contention for the mayoral runoff, although pardon me. Although part of the late ballot surge is now surrounded by questions, federal investigators are currently examining those. Looking at the emerging map, New York, Seattle, Washington, and potentially Los Angeles. These are deep blue cities where the Democratic primaries frequently the real election. That allows socialist organizers to establish strongholds, build donor and volunteer networks, demonstrate their governing model, and create a bench for higher office. It is not yet a national socialist majority. It is an expanding network of political enclaves. And these candidates are selling their politics through affordability, free buses, government-supported childcare, rent controls, public housing, city-owned grocery stores, higher taxes on wealthy residents and businesses, and expanded government services presented as immediate relief from the cost of living. That is politically smarter than running around quoting Marx, even though everything they're actually pushing is tied directly to Marxist philosophy. They are attaching socialist mechanisms to genuine economic anxieties. The Democratic establishment struggles to respond because too many of its leaders can describe the problem without offering a solution voters can repeat. That was Mamdani's greatest political strength. You may disagree with his policies, but people understood what he promised. Now, there is a legitimate counter-argument. Mamdani has not demonstrated that his model can travel everywhere. A CBS News poll found that nearly 22% of Democrats wanted their party to move forward and move toward explicitly socialist economic positions. 60% preferred what they called a mixture of capitalist and socialist ideas. And spare me that poll-tested escape hatch. You can mix policies, you can regulate markets, you can establish public programs, you can construct a safety net inside a capitalist economy. But capitalism and socialism rest upon antithetical first principles. Capitalism begins with private ownership, individual economic liberty, and voluntary exchange. Socialism moves economic ownership of control toward the collective, generally administered through government. One begins by asking what individuals are free to own, create, and exchange. The other begins by asking what government should control, redistribute, or provide. You may borrow mechanisms from both systems, but you cannot give both first principles ultimate authority. Eventually, one governs the other. They cannot occupy the same commanding space at the same time, much less share it equally. What people against market failures. That is a mixed economy. It is not proof that capitalism and socialism have resolved their foundational disagreement. And it does not tell us where those voters will draw the line when public assistance becomes government ownership, permanent price controls, confiscatory taxation, or political control of private economic decisions. There is also evidence supporting the moderate mainstream Democrats still win most contested Democratic primaries. Abigail Spamberger, yes, I said her name wrong on purpose, and Mikey Sherrill demonstrated that more moderate candidates can construct broader statewide coalitions. California Democrats recently selected the more centrist Xavier Becerra over insurgent alternatives. The Democratic Party cannot win national power solely by accumulating votes in New York City, Seattle, Washington, and Los Angeles. But wait, it can if they keep pushing for this idea that we need to get rid of the Electoral College. There is a reason they are pushing these socialist agendas in places where the primaries are the de facto elections. Because if they can get their socialist guys in power and then they can convince you that the Electoral College is racist, guess what? Those blue cities and those blue states determine who runs the country. Plain and simple. But yeah, so right now, because of the Electoral College, the Democratic Party cannot win national power solely by accumulating votes in places like New York City, Seattle, Washington, and Los Angeles, because it still needs suburban voters, working class swing votes, independents, and people outside overwhelmingly Democratic metropolitan areas. But again, that's only because there is a safeguard in place called the Electoral College that everybody has convinced, that half the country is convinced there are people that listen to them that is an evil mechanism of slavery and must be destroyed. So Mamdani is not the uncontested leader of every Democratic voter, but that, in my opinion, may be the wrong test. Who is leading the argument over what the Democratic Party should become? Who has the movement? Who is recruiting its next generation of candidates? Who is willing to challenge Democratic incumbents? Who is forcing Jeffries, Democratic governors, congressional candidates, and presidential hopefuls to respond? Right now, the answer increasingly appears to be none other than Zohran Mamdani, the commie. The Clinton Democrats may still possess much of the formal machinery, but Mamdani's faction has something the establishment currently lacks. And that is ideological confidence. The immediate test arrives in New York's June 23rd primaries. If Goldman and Spieth survive comfortably, the limitations of Mamdani's influence will become clearer. But if Mamdani's slate succeeds, particularly if his candidates remove sitting members of Congress, the conversation changes, and it likely changes forever, because he will have demonstrated that he can recruit candidates, mobilize a movement, challenge the establishment, and punish Democrats who stand in his way. Whether moderate Democrats admit it or not, that is what political leadership looks like. And that is unfortunately where we're going to have to take the break. When we come back, because we're taking the break a little bit earlier than I had planned based on my notes, but that's because I started ranting a little bit more than I meant to. But when we come back, we are going to finish up technically the end of hour one. Then we'll skip the top of the hour break because we're taking it now. And that way I can hopefully get through as much of the notes as I can. So we're just going to reset and treat this like it's the beginning because we're pretty much there now anyway. So my name is Rick Robinson. We'll be right back. And I know everybody's like, I don't know why you stick to this strict schedule because you're not on the radio anymore. It's habit. And it's not just that. Before I started doing this one, even when it started as a hobby, I had every minute of my entire workday scheduled in front of me and I had to stick to it. So once I have a clock figured out, it drives me nuts if I don't follow it. I know that's a me problem, not a you problem, but it is what it is. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. From Red
I've seen the fire in our nation's eyes when anger prowls for prey. I've heard good people draw their lines and call it holy rage, but the cross was never raised to bless the stones we throw. And if mercy leaves the house, there's something wrong down in the soul. Words ain't bullets, but they can hit the same. And once a heart turns cold enough, it forgets what grace is for. There's no room for hate in America tonight. No room in the home where the children need the light. No room in the heart where the Savior's supposed to stay. If Jesus owns the house, then hatred don't got no place. No room for hate. No, no room for hate. No room for hate. You can wave a flag above it. You can quote a verse or two. You can dress it up like justice till it almost sounds like truth. But outrage ain't righteous when it changes with the side. And you can't love your neighbor, treating them like they're downrange. We're all image bearers, breath of God and dust. And you don't heal a broken land by teaching it not to trust. There's no room for hate in America tonight. No room in the home where the children need the light. No room in the heart where the Savior's supposed to stay. If Jesus owns the house, then hatred don't got no place. No room for hate. No room for hate. No room for hate. Drag it to the cross, lay it in the ground. Let the blood of Jesus turn the whole thing around. Truth can still be spoken, courage still can stand, but rage don't get to rule the soul of a faithful man. There's no room for hate in America tonight. No room in the home where the children need the light. No room in the heart where the Savior's supposed to stay. If Jesus owns the house, then hatred don't got no place.
Let revival start where the anger breaks.
Where the anger breaks.
Let healing rise up where the hurt gives way.
No room for hate.
No room for hate.
No
Remember when entertainment was actually entertaining? When comedy was about being funny, movies were about telling great stories, and you didn't need a political lecture every time you hit play. Great entertainment still exists, it's just getting harder to find. Even the biggest streaming platforms leave audiences disappointed. That's why there's Studio TST, pure entertainment, real comedy, independent films, bold creators, movies, comedy, music, and more, and the home of fearless sketch comedy. That show tonight, entertainment the way you want it. Funny, creative, unapologetic, and agenda-free. Studio TST, the future of entertainment starts here. Join Studio TST today for just $5 a month.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRN-Radio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRN Radio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRN-Radio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRN Radio.
In uncertain times, we could use someone to lean on. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Oklahoma will stand by you with plan options to fit your budget. If you've recently lost your job, had a baby, or moved, you can still get the healthcare coverage you and your family need. Financial help may be available for those who qualify. Call 855-452-BLUE or visit hereforyouok.com to see if you're eligible to enroll. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Oklahoma, a division of Healthcare Service Corporation, a mutual legal reserve company.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@KLRNradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Got a vendetta. Coffee tastes like bad decisions I ain't made yet. Boss man talking about we got her, and that means me, brother. Afraid I got a terminal case of the I don't want us. Mind checked out, heart ain't in the building. That second hand's crawling like it hates my guts. The man treating rich like it's a sin. Even God took a beat. So, suck it. Thank God it's Friday, punching out loud. Hands in the air, middle finger to 9 to 5. Still waiting, but tonight I don't care. Cold
be a sermon and a barstool prayer. Take this job and shove it, I quit. Till Monday, cause tonight I'm free. Yeah, work and wait. It ain't owning me. So raise them up high. Let the whistle blow. Thank God it's Friday. That's all I know. HR in the break room sounding like a preacher, talking about culture smiles and being team players. Clipboard dreams on the fluorescent light, selling hours of my life just to make it to Friday night.
Yes, I forgot my mic was hot. I don't care. Anyway, dude, it has been a week. Let me fix this so I can, fix this for real and legitimately. So hang on just a moment for me. Problem is, I don't really know how to fix this part. So let's do that. There. That way I can fix it. I don't know why I'm worried about it, because it's the last time I'm going to be playing it till next week anyway. But anyway, so we're back. We're live. It's Friday. I know the transition was sloppy. So we have a new podcast that's joined us. I'm running into some issues, though, because normally what has happened up until now, when I have had groups that have been affiliated with other podcast groups that have either folded or they've decided to change over, normally we just pick up where that one left off and we start running from there, because I don't normally have rights to go in and pull their RSS because it belongs to somebody else. Well, this group actually had their own RSS. So I'm running into all kinds of things that I've never had to deal with before. I'm not going to keep talking about it for very much longer. Just venting my frustration, because I realized that I was trying to fix something else for them while we were on break a second ago, and I can't. So anyway, so remember that clip that I told you that I couldn't find? Well, I found it somewhere. If I can remember where I put it. There it is. So we're going to go ahead, since we're already kind of off show clock anyway, we are going to go ahead and play this clip. So hang on. There we go. So yeah, this is what I'm talking about. So this is whether you like it or not, and even from some of the folks that are posting this kind of stuff. And again, but I say this again, life on X does not necessarily reflect reality, because a lot of people seem to think that it does. But everybody's getting really excited about this dude. I, for one, am not a fan of people that are, communist. But hey, last time, as far as I knew, I thought communism and America did not go together like chocolate and peanut butter are supposed to. Anyway, but here's the clip I was talking about. You listened to this and you told me this guy doesn't already think that he's basically running the Democratic Party. Let me make sure we can hear it, though, because I realized I didn't fix that part.
My fellow New Yorkers, for 53 long years we have watched and we have waited. We have watched from nosebleeds and through gritted teeth, on televisions in the windows of electronic stores, and from projectors balanced on fire escapes. We have watched alone in our apartments with our heads in our hands, shoulder to shoulder at bars where the signal flickers, alongside friends and family who we wish more than anything could be here today, sharing this moment. For 53 long years, we have watched the Knicks and we have waited. We waited as the memory of Willis Reed winning the championship on one leg grew fainter and fainter. We waited as Clyde came up clutch again and again. As John Starks dunked on Jordan and Patrick Ewing dunked on the Pacers. As Bernard King scored 60. As Charles Oakley pulled every rebound within reach. As Spike got in Reggie Miller's face. As Allen Houston put up a shot against Miami that hung in the air for an eternity. As Larry Johnson gave us the 4-point play heard around New York. As Starbury traded threes with Kobe and then sold sneakers every kid could afford. As Nate Robinson stuffed Yao Ming. As the city came alive watching Linsanity. And as Melo lived every Brooklyn dreams when he came home. and made MSG feel like the center of the universe once again. We waited without ever knowing if this day would come, and we waited because we knew deep down in our sick, suffering hearts that it would. New York City, this team has done it. The New York Knicks are NBA champions. We are here not just because of this team that will go down in New York City legend. I'm talking about guys like Ronaldo Balkman, Marty Collins.
Okay,
Raymond
so
Felton, Marcus Camby,
I think this is the speech I was looking for, but I don't think it has the entirety of what I wanted to have in there. But this is just showing you this guy, for being a communist, or I'm sorry, a socialist, because according to the left, they're not the same thing. He's pretty popular, which should terrify a lot of folks, and for some reason it isn't. Now, this is where I start having issues with this person, and I'm going to show you why right here. This is from June 10th.
Can y'all hear me all right? Y'all hear me all right? Y'all hear me all right? I'm Peppermint, and I am so excited to be here for Mayor Mamdani's very first ever New York City Pride celebration as mayor.
Happy Pride, everyone! As a first step, my administration has made a $15 million investment in gender-affirming care over the next 2 years. And we will continue to use every tool at our disposal to ensure that trans and gender non-conforming New Yorkers can live with dignity, safety, and freedom they deserve.
Can y'all hear?
All right, so let me explain to you why this irritates me before I get back into the actual scripted or noted portion of the show. These people are embracing eugenics in every sense of the word. They are wanting people to abort babies that they believe may have physical disabilities or even mental disabilities or cognitive issues. They're praying for people to abort babies at this point. They're now, at this point, letting children who apparently have some sort of a mental issue going on make permanent changes to their bodies instead of treating the actual issues. This is eugenics. The party that keeps telling us we're the Nazis is actively embracing eugenics. The party that is telling us that we're the Nazis is actively trying to get a Nazi elected senator in Maine. I've been saying this now for years. Every accusation from the left towards you is an admission of what they think, how they feel, and what they would do in your position, and they're projecting it onto you because they assume you are the same. This is some of the problem that we keep running into with the Middle East, and I'll be getting into that assuming we have time, because I'm going to say this again. I said it on Wednesday. Donald Trump is viewing this from a Western ideological perspective. He sees it as we won because we bombed their dick into the dirt, which is true. Objectively, that is true. The problem is they see it differently. As long as there is one person alive in that regime that still clings to their ideology, that can go and say all the right things and buy themselves enough time to get money coming back into the coffers again and give them time to rebuild, then they have won. And we'll be getting into that later. Now, again, I'm not faulting the president for making a deal. I've tried to make that very clear. I understand why a deal had to be made. I just don't understand why some of these points have been kicked so far down the road that now we're wondering, are they ever going to actually be enforced? Or are they eventually going to be enforced? Or are they never going to be enforced? But so here's just to kind of get back into where we were. So while Mamdani and Sanders were rallying the Democratic Party's ideological future in Brooklyn, its former leaders gathered in Chicago for the opening of the Obama Presidential Center. Barack and Michelle Obama were there. Bill and Hillary Clinton were there. George W. and Laura Bush were there. Joe and Jill Biden were there. Hollywood was there. The event began with a land acknowledgement because, even the opening of a presidential library must begin by questioning the legitimacy of the ground beneath it. So this is when I have to give everybody a bit of a history lesson. They like to acknowledge that we took land from people who wanted us dead. History has taught you wrong. If you believe that white people were the problem, history taught you wrong. We actually were trying to coexist with the people that were here. We were the folks that came here, but our forefathers, depending on how long you've been here, the folks that founded the country, the folks that, set all the things in motion, they wanted to get along with the natives. And they tried really hard to do so because that's what their faith taught them to do. The problem is their faith started changing the culture of the native tribes, and the chiefs were having none of it. They, the chiefs, ironically enough, were trying to conserve their way of life, which was kill thine enemies and rape thine women whenever you choose. However, that does not go along very well with love thy neighbor and pray for thine enemy. So the chiefs weren't having it. The more Christianity started in basically becoming a part of tribal culture, the harder the chiefs and the leaders of the tribes fought against that, and eventually we went to war with each other. But yeah, so that's the people these people are doing land acknowledgments for. You know what I want to see at this point? I just want to see one of these tribes actually sue based on the land acknowledgement. Be like, hey, these people are saying this land should technically still belong to us. I want to take them to court and see what happens. As somebody who is technically part Native American, I would be okay with that. I don't think it's gonna go anywhere. But I would love just once for a tribe to say, hey, since you're acknowledging this is ours, we're suing you to take it back. However, I don't think anybody, past, present, or future, is going to want the land under the Obama Presidential Library like ever again. So after asking who represents the party's future, this ceremony offered a portrait of its past. Barack Obama invoked the American Revolution and declared there would be no kings, serfs, or subjects, only citizens. The no kings reference was kind of on the nose. Michelle Obama praised her husband for ending a war, ordering the raid that killed Osama bin Laden, rescuing the auto industry. But did he really? And winning a Nobel Peace Prize, which he would have had to have been nominated for before he was ever elected or accomplished anything to be able to win it in the time frame that he did. But that's, I guess, not relevant. Hillary Clinton reportedly laughed loudly at the Peace Prize line, but reopening the Obama record invites people to examine it. Obama received the Nobel Prize less than a year into his presidency. Even many supporters acknowledged that the award was based more upon aspiration than achievement. His administration expanded drone warfare, intervened in Libya, and participated in conflicts throughout the Middle East. Michelle Obama also declared that dreamers are not merely Americans, but are America, the beating heart of the country. That statement arrived as federal officials revealed that the alleged organizer of the White House UFC terror plot had received DACA protection during, you guessed it, the Obama administration. That does not make every dreamer dangerous. It does demonstrate, however, why sentimental language cannot replace individual screening, enforcement, and continuing review. Then came the image that may remain from the ceremony. As people began leaving the stage, and I do have the clip for this one, so hang on, let me go find it. Let me go find it. Because, yeah, Silver Alert was silver alerting again. Just so you know. I'm sure this has probably already been talked about enough that I'm not even sure why I'm playing it, but still. Where did it go? I know I had it. I could have swore I bookmarked that one. Anyway, hang on. Okay, now I remember at least where I found it. I just forgot to bookmark it, so hang on. Sorry, now we're just waiting on my system to catch up with me. Because, yeah. All right, so I will say this. I didn't see this part of it. Obama's kind of jamming out for being a total tool. He kind of looks cool for a second, I guess. But yeah, here we go. You ready? Now, Now, I'd like to point out, look who's right behind Barack Obama right now. And notice who's not there. Camera starts panning out. Camera starts panning out. Silver alert. Looking at the teleprompter like he's forgetting that he's supposed to say something. Mr. Dunham, paging Jeff Dunham, please come find your puppet, Walter. Especially with that look on his face. Come on, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
Look at my granddaughter.
I mean, it could be worse. At least he didn't start screaming about tapioca. Or, I like spaghetti. Do you sell spaghetti? Yay. But it was pretty damn bad. And I normally try to do my best not to make fun of old people, especially now that I'm becoming one. But Jesus, Jill, stop. Well, I mean, look, so here's the other little sidebar. So there was an interesting little interview after all of this. Yeah, whatever, dude. So, yeah, anyway. So, here's an interesting little sidebar. I don't think they're ever actually going to get divorced because political high-profile couples never really do. But I found something very interesting in an interview that was given last night after the Borg cube was unveiled. And I know that's an insult to Borg cubes, but it's still kind of what it reminds me of. They asked President or former President Barack Obama what his future entailed. He basically said, I believe it was fun. They asked Michelle Obama the same thing. What does your future look like? Mine. This is a couple that doesn't like each other anymore. I don't necessarily know if they ever did, but from everything that I've seen from her podcast tours and everything else that she's been doing, she is using a lot of the language of a woman who is currently working on decoupling. Just saying. I don't know, you shit troll. Get out of my chat. I owe you gas money. You probably what do I owe you gas money for? Your several legs? Get out of my chat. Anyway. All right, we're gonna take the break. We still got the law enforcement or the first responder tribute to do. I know I am completely behind schedule today because I keep ranting, but we're gonna get through it all one way or the other. We'll be right back.
Comes in, somebody answers. Day or night, they're already moving. Calm voices, fast hands, doing the work while the rest of the world freezes. From a headset to a truck, from a badge to a door, they don't stop to count the cost. They step in when it matters. It's not about being seen, it's about being there. They're holding the line when the lines go dead, standing their ground when the world goes dark. They're the calm in the chaos, holding the line through the fire, the flood. When everything falls, they don't ask why, they just answer the call. Always standing in the gap for us all. Before the sirens fade, before the scene is clear, someone's already making sense of the moment. Keeping people alive, keeping things from getting worse. Some run toward danger, some stay behind and hold it together. Different roles, same weight, same promise to show up. everything's on the line. They're already there. They're holding the line when the lines go dead, standing their ground when the world goes dark. They're the calm in the chaos, holding the line through the fire, the flood, when everything falls. They don't ask why, they just answer the call. Always standing in the gap for us all. This is service, this is sacrifice, this is how lives are saved. No spotlight, no applause, just showing up again and again. They're holding the line when the world goes dark. When everything's breaking, they hold their ground. They're the calm in the chaos, holding the line. So we raise our voices for the ones who stand. Every voice, every badge, every helping hand. They don't ask why, they just answer the call. Always standing in the gap for us all. Always standing in the gap for us all. For those who run and for those who hold steady, for those who stand in the gap.
And welcome back into the program, ladies and gentlemen. I have not heard from anybody on the Weekend News Roundup crew. I got to admit, we've all been a little bit lazy since Amy's been in Egypt. So we may not be back with that one until she gets back. However, I do have plenty of content. So if I haven't heard from anybody, we won't switch gears and I'll just get through it all. Because we haven't even made it into hour 2 yet, technically, and we're already halfway through it. It's been that kind of day. Anyway, so I got to talk about this. Again, this is part of the problem. I keep being distracted, but I think this is absolutely amazing. Hang on. I got to find it again because I lost it. Where did I put it? I hate it when that happens. All right, so this is from Emmanuel Quinones on X. I'm just going to read it because I think there's a lot here that we as Americans take for granted. And we're seeing things through fresh eyes. And for a lot of us, we're being reminded of why we love the place. And for a lot of folks, they're being reminded why they hate the place because they don't like anything that we like about the place. So you decide which side you're on. So the World Cup has turned America into a Discovery Channel for the rest of the world, and they are not handling it well in the best possible way. Here's what they are discussing. Free public restrooms, because Europeans pay every time, especially when they're European. I know, I'm terrible. I'm a grandpa. I'm allowed to make bad jokes now. I think. I'm pretty sure it's in my contract. Free water at every restaurant, and that just magically appears. Free refills, coffee, soda, iced tea, unlimited free chips and salsa before you even order, free warm bread with dinner, ice in drinks like civilized people, air conditioning everywhere, not a moral debate about it, an actual fact, parking lots attached to the actual place you're going, drive-thrus where the food comes to the car while you sit in it, ranch dressing by the gallon. Dude, ranch dressing is like it's going to become an international sensation, and then we're not going to have enough of it anymore, I'm afraid, because these people are going nuts over ranch dressing. Tex-Mex that cannot be explained, only experienced. Dental care that actually works. Buc-ee's. There is no word for Buc-ee's. Having been there twice, I can relate. Then they found the grocery stores. 5 of them within 1 mile. Each one the size of an aircraft hangar. Burgers, steaks, brisket, ribs, pulled pork, lamb, veal, every cut of every animal ever domesticated by human civilization available in one refrigerated aisle at 10 in the morning on a Tuesday. The Germans stood in the meat section for 45 minutes in silence, just processing it all. They finally understand why we do not have trains. We have roads wide enough for the cars we actually drive, parking lots the size of small European countries, airports in every city worth visiting. Hey, well, I guess it's not necessarily false because there is a small airport near me still, so technically not a false statement. Why would we need trains? The Germans are taking ranch home by the bottle. The Dutch found queso and briefly lost their ability to speak. Dude, queso is the bomb, though. The Japanese are photographing HEB like it's the Louvre, and the Czechs are weeping in West Texas. Welcome to America, because we are, especially in the celebration of America's 250th birthday, the greatest country on earth, and I will fight you. Not even kidding. Not even kidding. Dude, where else in the world could a guy who has basically been a jackass of all trades his entire life build something as great as KLRN Radio and write for places and do all the things that I do now and make a living doing it? I can't think of any other place. But that's one of the things that I've been talking about. The people that love this country are the ones that have skin in the game. The ones that are out trying to make things different, trying to make things better. Folks like Elon Musk, everybody trashes this dude. Nobody talks about all the things that he went through to get where he is. Everybody talks about me. Nobody realizes this is my fourth company that I have ever built. 2 of them went pretty well before things changed and I had to find something else to do. 2 of them, well, one of them blew up entirely, and now there's this one. You learn more from failures than you ever learn from success. The problem that we have in this country is we've started teaching people that failure is not an option. Failure isn't an option, but it's a roadmap. You have to fail. If you don't, if you find success that quickly, you're going to ruin it. And that will eventually turn into a failure, which you'll have to learn from. But the problem is we don't like failure in this country anymore. We don't like struggles being hard. And this is actually duplicated by something that I was listening to today that I didn't even bother to put in my notes. There's this lady that used to be like on TV back in the day when I was raising kids called the Super Nanny. British chick. Sounds a lot like Mary Poppins. And she's talking about how not we, because I've done my part of raising kids and mine are all adults now, but how we as a country are raising some of the weakest children in society right now because they're not being allowed to struggle. They're not being taught that it's okay to fail. If you're going to help somebody understand that it's okay to fail, it's much better to do it while you're there as a safety net than it is to not teach them that there are times in life that you're going to fail and you have to figure out how to pick yourself up, dust yourself back off, and keep on going. If they're not learning it while you're there as their safety net, they're learning it once they're out in the world, if you're lucky enough to have gotten them out into the world, and then they're learning the extra hard way. And most of the time they give up. All right, so let me see. Sorry, I'm just checking something here. All right. So again, we before I went on my little tirade, we were talking about Joe. For years, the Democratic establishment told America not to believe what they could see regarding Biden's condition. Then it replaced him only after the truth became politically impossible to hide. And it's right back in front of everyone again. That is trust under pressure. It is a fitting image for a party caught between eras. The Obamas, Clintons, and Bidens gathered to celebrate their legacy. Mamdani, AOC, and the DSA are organizing the movement they believe should and will replace it. But while the Obama-era establishment celebrated, Tulsi Gabbard used her final day as Director of National Intelligence to reopen one of that establishment's most consequential disputes. And I'm going to play the video. Reasons. Because, again, this was something that we tried to talk about from the beginning and kept trying to tell everybody was an actual thing. Because, those of us that understand how patterns work, we're starting to be able to see things and we're like, hey, this doesn't make any sense. 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 But because everybody was doing censorship at the time, because X was Twitter back then, and Jack Dorsey was bending to the will of the Biden administration, who basically said censor these people or else. So fun times. But here's what we now know, or is now being confirmed. Again, longer clip, but we're going to get through it.
Before the COVID pandemic, Dr. Fauci, as head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, provided millions in U.S. taxpayer dollars to fund dangerous gain-of-function research on bat coronaviruses at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, work which is now widely viewed as the source of the unintentional lab leak that sparked the pandemic. Now, in support of President Trump's maximum transparency mandate, today, on my final day as Director of National Intelligence, I'm releasing never-before-seen communications and documents that expose exactly how Fauci worked with politicized career leadership in the intelligence community to suppress the truth about his actions, the virus's lab leak origins, and his role in directing U.S. funding for this dangerous research that caused immeasurable harm and countless lost lives. Now, these documents expose Fauci's direct role in influencing and manipulating IC assessments on COVID-19 and how Fauci lied to Congress in 2024 when under oath he denied knowledge of or participation in discussions with intelligence officials about viral research. We also received testimony from multiple intelligence community whistleblowers who reported retaliation for challenging the intelligence community's manipulation of intelligence on the virus's origins, once again revealing a clear pattern of suppressing dissent, silencing critics, and burying the truth. Dr. Fauci's close relationships with the intelligence community enabled him to assume three key roles that shield him from scrutiny. First, Dr. Fauci funded dangerous gain-of-function coronavirus research linked to Big Pharma and their pursuit of universal vaccines worth trillions of dollars. Second, Dr. Fauci was the behind-the-scenes advisor who, alongside his hand-picked so-called experts, pushed the intelligence community to endorse a natural animal origin to hide his dangerous gain-of-function research that he funded using taxpayer dollars, all of this in a deliberate attempt to cover up the truth and shift the blame and attention away from Fauci's own actions. Third, Dr. Fauci became the nation's pandemic pundit, and he publicly pushed lies, disinformation, and censorship using every platform available. Now, according to hundreds of reviewed emails, which are included in this release, the intelligence community almost always incorporated Fauci's recommendations. He promoted a fraudulent paper whose publication he helped prompt as legitimate information for intelligence community consideration. Senior analysts praised Dr. Fauci not as a policymaker, but as what they called an unbiased guide to the real coronavirus experts, while deliberately ignoring experts who might dissent from Fauci's narratives. Now, Fauci didn't stop there. He blatantly lied to Congress under oath during his 2024 testimony to the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic, denying that he ever spoke to any intelligence agency about COVID. Now, the correspondence I'm releasing today directly contradicts his sworn testimony. Now, we received statements from multiple whistleblowers revealing that the intelligence analysts who dared to challenge Dr. Fauci's COVID origin conclusions faced threats of retaliation, marginalization, and many suffered career setbacks. For example, a contractor was terminated just days after coming forward to ODNI as a whistleblower. Another example, those who advocated for the lab leak hypothesis or expressed dissenting views were reminded by their managers that leadership would determine which analysts would be promoted and which would not. The message was clear: go along or be punished. Senior leaders also sought to undermine whistleblowers by removing anonymity, which is required in the whistleblower process, as they made their complaints, and also insisting that their managers or attorneys be present during ODNI meetings where these whistleblowers were coming forward with their testimony, obviously creating an atmosphere of intimidation. The COVID pandemic caused tremendous hardship and pain for millions of our fellow Americans and countless people around the world. Now, after years of lies and censorship and cover-ups, the American people deserve transparency, truth, and accountability. The tactics that were used to hide the truth are straight from the deep state playbook. Politicized, self-serving leaders like Dr. Fauci covered up their own wrongdoing and abuses of power, manipulated intelligence, lied to Congress, and undermined a duly elected president by restricting his access to the vital facts he needed to keep the country safe. It's time you know the truth.
All right, so there you have it. I will remind everyone that these are things that we tried to tell you from the beginning. However, anytime we did, everything that we tried to put out about it was deboosted, defunded, buried. We've already had one YouTube channel killed. They're in the process of killing another one because I keep talking about this stuff. We got a supposed 7-day copyright strike the last time I talked about it. And then that one fell off. So then a couple weeks ago, about a couple weeks ago now, one of the other producers was playing something that I guess YouTube felt like they didn't have the rights to play. They won't even tell us what it was. And I'm not going through the entire 2.5 hour broadcast to try to find it. And that was only supposed to be another 7-day rip because the other one had fallen off. And it's now still, according to them, locked for another 3 days, which is well beyond even a 14-day rip, because 14 days would have been tomorrow or today, actually. And they're saying it won't fall off until Monday. So anyway, it is what it is. It is what it is. But here's the thing. This is stuff that, Stacy Lennox and I used to try to tell you all the time. First, in a show that we used to kind of make fun of the fact that it was supposed to be 2 weeks to slow the spread. And I had a job at the time to tell them, because of all the sensitive information that you handle and because of this, and this, there's going to be no way for you to ever do your job remotely. And then COVID hit and suddenly we were sent home with laptops and everything else for 2 weeks. And then 4 years later, we were still working from home. So I had the idea of starting a morning show, because when I had to go into the office and when I thought it was only going to be for 2 weeks, I had to drive an hour and 15 minutes each way. So I didn't want to get used to just being able to roll out of bed at 8, throw some coffee in my gullet, and go log in my office, which is right here, by 8:30. So we started doing an early morning show, so I would still have to get up at the same time. And it started as a joke, mostly. I mean, dude, I don't know if you guys remember the early COVID days, but I swear to God, there were news reports that were coming in that a lot of us that were hearing things like from across the pond and in other countries were thinking we were like in the beginning stages of The Walking Dead, because people were saying that there were people that they swore died from COVID who were alive again. And I'm like, I've seen these movies. I don't like the fact that they're talking about these things, but I've seen these movies. And so then the longer it went on, the less of a joke the show became. And so we started doing the Daily Dose. Funnily enough, that show has been pulled from everywhere. Probably. They say it's because of excessive IP address correlation, etc. But I have a feeling it has more to do with the content. Because the original show where we were making more fun of it all is still there. Same basic concept, slightly different name, slightly different take on it. Because at that point, we thought it wasn't going to last very long. And I just didn't want to get used to didn't want to get used to being able to sleep in. The problem is, the longer this COVID thing went on, and even before they started the 2 weeks to slow the spread thing, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I am not by any means a doctor or pathologist or anything like that, but I do have a lot of folks in my family that have taken medical training, and I am able to have conversations with them that, believe it or not, I track fairly well. And I was looking at this going, this is not how any of this should have happened. And the weirdest thing about COVID, right, because everybody kept saying, well, it was an accident. Well, even if it was an accident, why did China seal their internal borders but allow everybody from Wuhan and anybody else from anywhere else still to leave the country. Even if it was an accident, at some point the Chinese did what they always do, and that's why their word for crisis and opportunity is the same. They took a crisis and then they saw a chance to make it an opportunity. So they started letting people leave that were likely infected. And then they bought up all the PPE they could find and made themselves look like the good guys by saying, here's PPE. We're going to help save the world. I mean, this was probably the biggest actual documented proof of government-funded Munchausen by proxy that has ever existed. And everybody, including Dr. Fauci, tried to sweep it under the rug because Dr. Fauci had again gone through, pardon me a moment, and legally changed the definition of gain-of-function research so that the research that he was doing could not technically, legally be considered gain-of-function research anymore. And then he offshored it all to make it that much harder to trace until this happened. Now, I have some even more tinfoil hat folks besides me that like to say, well, you see, maybe it wasn't accidental because it was whether accidental or not, it became one of the ways that the left was able to steal an election. If you still don't believe that they've done that, all you have to do is look at the data. Look at the election before, look at the election after, and then look at 2020. Tell me where the 9 million people went that we can't account for. Was there a Biden voter rapture and nobody told me? Where did they go? Where did they go? Anyway, so back to the notes here. So she actually released a total of 3 batches of declassified communications and documents. And as you heard from the video, her office says they demonstrate that Anthony Fauci, while leading the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, directed millions in American funding toward dangerous coronavirus research at the Wuhan laboratory. Get out of my laboratory, DD. Helped suppress the lab leak explanation, influenced intelligence analysis, and later misled Congress. Those are Gabbard's allegations and conclusions. The release is not a criminal conviction, at least not yet. Will it ever be? Who knows? And several underlying questions still remain potentially disputed. The intelligence community has not reached unanimous agreement regarding COVID's origin, but I don't trust our intelligence community anymore either, for reasons. Anyway. The definition of gain-of-function research has itself been fiercely contested, because Fauci changed it. Fauci has repeatedly denied lying to Congress and argued that the funded research did not meet the operative federal definition of gain of function because he changed it. We should also be precise about the funding chain. Fauci did not personally write a check directly to the Wuhan Institute. NIAID provided grants to Echo Health Alliance, and part of that funding supported coronavirus research conducted with the Wuhan Institute of Virology. But again, while I have to put that part in there, that's tomato potato. Just saying. That funding chain does not necessarily establish the pandemic's origin. It makes the oversight question more important. What research did American taxpayers fund? Who approved it? What risks were disclosed? What did officials know about Wuhan safety practices? Why were people asking those questions treated as conspiracy theories before the evidence had been completely examined? Gabbard says the released communications demonstrate that intelligence officials deferred to Fauci's recommendations and that politicized officials suppressed information pointing towards a laboratory origin. That allegation requires examination of the documents, not blind acceptance, because Gabbard released them, and not automatic dismissal because Fauci is accused. The possibility of a laboratory leak was not merely debated, it was stigmatized. People were removed from platforms, posts were labeled misinformation, entire shows and networks were buried. Reports treated the question as though it belonged beside claims that the virus arrived on an alien spacecraft. Then the position changed. A laboratory leak went from impossible to unlikely to plausible to an explanation supported at differing confidence levels by portions of the intelligence community that should have produced humility. Instead, many of the people who demanded unquestioning trust moved on without explaining why they had been so certain. Gabbard's release raises a more serious possibility. What if officials presenting themselves as neutral referees were also defending decisions in which their agencies participated? If an agency helped finance research connected to the laboratory under investigation, its leaders were not completely disinterested observers. They had institutional reputations to protect. Institutional self-interest does not establish responsibility for the pandemic. It creates a conflict that should have been disclosed rather than hidden behind appeals to authority. Americans were told to trust the science, but science is a method of investigation, not a priesthood whose officials are exempt from scrutiny. I did it again. I don't know why I have such a problem with that word. No government official is science. No intelligence chief is the intelligence. No agency deserves protection from documentary evidence because examining its decisions might reduce public confidence. If the documents support Gabbard's allegations, accountability should follow. If she's overstated what they established, the record should expose that too. You cannot censor your way to public trust. You cannot manufacture confidence by hiding uncertainty. And you cannot demand that citizens trust an institution where leaders refuse to show their work. And that, believe it or not, is actually supposed to be just the end of hour 1, and we're already to the end of hour 2. I don't really have the voice to do an hour 3, so we're going to do an amended approach here. Actually, I guess we're not. I just heard from Brad. So we'll be changing tax in a second. So there will be a weekend news roundup. I just heard from Brad and BZ. So yay, I wasn't sure. And because of the new schedule, I'm always nervous because I'm like, we got to roll straight into one from the other. So I'm like, I kind of need to know. Anyway, so yeah, we'll get into some of this other stuff because I'm sure the memorandum of understanding will come up. We may even dig back through some of the other stuff that I've left behind. I'm going to go ahead and take us out with a song, just so I can hopefully run and go grab a cough drop real quick so I can get through another hour or 12. We'll be right. Well, I would say we'll be right back because technically we will be, but we're also going to be changing feeds. So yeah, hang tight.
They tried to quench the fire, drown it all in chains, tried to break our will and wash away our names. But every spark they buried only fed the flame. Now the cry of freedom's roaring through the rain. Hear the cry of freedom on the winds of change. Every voice united, breaking every chain.
I know, red-faced and all, but we gotta go. Changing feeds. Changing feeds. No, BZ, not no voice. Just been too ranty lately. So I had to fix it. Anyway, hang out. I'm going to shut things down for a second while we change feeds. Stay tuned.